The smoke rose high into the evening sky as Sarah Mitchell stood frozen on her front lawn. Her Navy uniform, the one she had worn with pride for 3 years, was burning in a metal barrel. The flames licked at the fabric, turning the crisp white shirt and navy blue pants into ash. Her husband, Marcus, stood beside the barrel with his arms crossed, a satisfied smirk on his face. Sarah's hands trembled as she watched 3 years of service go up in smoke. She had come home early from base that day, excited to share news about a potential advancement opportunity. Instead, she found Marcus in their bedroom, packing her uniforms and service medals into a cardboard box. When she asked what he was doing, his answer was cold and final. "You're done with this military nonsense," he had said, not even looking at her. "My wife doesn't need to play soldier. It's embarrassing. My colleagues laugh about it. You're going to quit and focus on being a proper wife." Sarah tried to reason with him. She explained how much her service meant to her, how she had dreamed of serving her country since childhood. Her father had been a Marine, and she grew up listening to his stories of honor and duty. Joining the Navy was her way of continuing that legacy. But Marcus wasn't interested in her dreams or her legacy. "I don't care about your father or his stories," Marcus snapped, finally making eye contact. "You're my wife now, and I make the decisions. Tomorrow you'll go to your commanding officer and submit your resignation. That's final." The argument escalated quickly. Marcus grabbed the box of uniforms and stormed outside. Sarah followed, pleading with him to stop and listen, but he had already made up his mind. He dumped the contents into the barrel and struck a match. Within seconds, everything she had worked for was on fire. Neighbors peeked through their curtains, watching the scene unfold. Sarah felt humiliation wash over her, but something else was stirring inside too. It was a quiet anger, the kind that doesn't explode but instead burns steadily, fueling determination. As she watched her uniform turn to ash, Sarah made a silent promise to herself. This wasn't the end. This was just the beginning. That night, Sarah lay awake in the guest bedroom. She had refused to share a bed with Marcus, and he didn't seem to care. Her mind raced with possibilities. She thought about her options, her future, and what she really wanted from life. By the time the sun rose, she had made her decision. The next morning, Sarah didn't go to base to resign. Instead, she went to the bank and opened a new account in her name only. She transferred half of their joint savings, which was legally hers. Then she went to a lawyer's office and filed for divorce. By noon, she had moved her essential belongings to a small apartment across town. Marcus came home to an empty house and divorce papers on the kitchen table. He called her dozens of times, leaving angry voicemails at first, then pleading ones. Sarah didn't answer. She had nothing to say to him. The man she thought she knew, the man she had married 2 years ago, had revealed his true nature. He didn't respect her, didn't value her dreams, and didn't deserve her time. Back at base, Sarah's commanding officer, Lieutenant Commander Jessica Rhodes, noticed something different about her. Sarah had always been a good sailor, competent and reliable, but now there was a fire in her eyes that hadn't been there before. When Lieutenant Commander Rhodes asked if everything was okay, Sarah told her everything. "I'm getting divorced," Sarah said simply, "and I want to push myself harder. I want to know what I'm really capable of." Lieutenant Commander Rhodes studied her for a moment, then smiled. "Have you ever considered special operations?" Sarah blinked in surprise. Special operations was intense, demanding, and few people even attempted the training. The failure rate was extremely high, and for women it was even more challenging due to the physical requirements. But the more Lieutenant Commander Rhodes talked about it, the more interested Sarah became. "It's the hardest thing you'll ever do," Rhodes warned. "Most people quit in the first week, but if you make it through, you'll be part of something extraordinary. You'll be elite." That word stuck with Sarah. Elite. She had spent her entire marriage being told she wasn't good enough, that her service was a joke, that she should give up her dreams. Now she had a chance to prove everyone wrong, especially Marcus. She could show him and everyone else exactly what she was made of. "I want to try," Sarah said firmly. "Tell me what I need to do." Over the next few months, Sarah dedicated herself to preparation. She woke up at 4 in the morning every day to run. She spent hours in the gym, building strength and endurance. She studied everything she could find about special operations training. Her apartment was small and bare, but she didn't care. She didn't need luxury or comfort. She needed focus. The divorce proceedings moved forward. Marcus fought her on everything, trying to make the process as difficult as possible. He couldn't accept that she had left him, that she had chosen her career over their marriage. He sent her messages calling her selfish and ungrateful. He told their friends lies about why they split up, painting himself as the victim. Sarah ignored all of it. His opinion didn't matter anymore. Her family was supportive, especially her father. When she told him about her decision to try for special operations, his eyes filled with pride. "Your mother would be so proud of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. Sarah's mother had passed away when she was 12, but she still remembered her strength and determination. She carried that memory with her every day. 6 months after Marcus burned her uniform, Sarah received notification that she had been accepted into the preliminary training program for special operations. The letter explained that this was just the first step. She would undergo months of evaluation and preparation before even attempting the actual selection course. Most candidates never made it that far. Sarah read the letter 3 times, then carefully folded it and placed it in her desk drawer. She looked around her small apartment, at the training schedule taped to her wall, at the running shoes by the door worn thin from countless miles. Everything in her life had led to this moment. She thought about the uniform burning in that barrel, about Marcus's smug face, about all the times she had been underestimated or dismissed. Then she thought about who she was becoming, about the strength she was building, about the person she wanted to be. Tomorrow, her real journey would begin. Tomorrow, she would start proving that she was unstoppable. Tomorrow, Sarah Mitchell would take the first step toward becoming something extraordinary. The alarm screamed at 3:30 in the morning, but Sarah was already awake. She had been lying in bed for the past hour, too nervous and excited to sleep. Today was the first day of preliminary training, and she wanted to be ready. She dressed quickly in her workout clothes, grabbed her packed bag, and headed out into the darkness. The training facility was an hour's drive from her apartment. Sarah arrived early, parking her car in the nearly empty lot. A few other candidates were already there, stretching and preparing themselves mentally for what was ahead. Sarah noticed she was one of only 3 women in a group of about 40 people. The other 2 women looked strong and confident. Sarah hoped she looked the same way, even though her stomach was doing flips. The instructors arrived exactly at 5 o'clock. They were intimidating men and women who moved with the confidence of people who had been through hell and came out stronger. The head instructor, a man named Chief Petty Officer Davis, stood before the group with his arms behind his back. His face showed no emotion as he studied each candidate. "Look around you," Chief Davis said, his voice carrying across the quiet morning. "In 6 months, most of you won't be here. This program breaks people. It finds every weakness, every doubt, every limitation you have, and it exposes it. Some of you will quit today. Some will quit next week. Only a handful will make it to selection, and even fewer will make it through." He paused, letting his words sink in. "If anyone wants to leave now, the door is open. No judgment. This isn't for everyone." Nobody moved. Sarah kept her eyes forward, her jaw set. She hadn't come this far to quit before even starting. "Good," Chief Davis said with the hint of a smile. "Let's begin." The first day was designed to shock candidates into understanding what they had signed up for. It started with a 5-mile run in full gear, carrying weighted packs. Sarah's lungs burned and her legs screamed, but she kept pace with the group. After the run came calisthenics, hundreds of push-ups, pull-ups, and sit-ups. Then they were in the pool, swimming lap after lap until Sarah's arms felt like lead. By noon, 5 people had quit. By the end of the day, that number was up to 12. Sarah finished every exercise, met every requirement, and refused to show weakness even when every muscle in her body was shaking with exhaustion. When she finally got home that night, she collapsed on her couch and didn't move for an hour. The weeks that followed established a brutal routine. Every day started before dawn with runs, swims, or obstacle courses. The physical training was relentless, pushing candidates to their absolute limits and then demanding more. But the mental challenges were just as difficult. Instructors constantly tested their problem-solving skills, their ability to work under pressure, and their leadership capabilities. Sarah struggled with some aspects more than others. Her upper body strength wasn't as developed as the men's, which made certain exercises harder for her. She had to work twice as long to achieve the same results. Every night she went home and did extra training. Every morning she woke up sore but determined. One of the other female candidates, a woman named Jennifer, quit after 3 weeks. She found Sarah after making her decision and explained her reasoning. "I'm not built for this," Jennifer said honestly. "I gave it my best shot, but my body can't take much more." "You're different, though. You've got something driving you that the rest of us don't have." Sarah thought about that conversation a lot. Jennifer was right. She did have something driving her. Every time she wanted to quit, she thought about Marcus burning her uniform. She thought about him telling her she wasn't good enough, that her dreams were worthless. That anger, that need to prove him wrong, kept her going when nothing else could. Around week 7, the remaining candidates faced one of their hardest challenges yet. They were divided into teams and given a mission scenario. Each team had to navigate through difficult terrain, solve problems along the way, and reach an objective within a time limit. Sarah was chosen as her team's leader. Things went wrong almost immediately. One team member twisted his ankle in the first mile. Another misread the map and led them in the wrong direction. Sarah had to make quick decisions under pressure while her team looked to her for guidance. She adjusted their route, redistributed the weight the injured team member had been carrying, and pushed everyone to move faster. They missed their time limit by 3 minutes. Sarah felt like a failure as Chief Davis reviewed their performance. But instead of criticism, he nodded thoughtfully. "You adapted to changing circumstances," he said. "You took care of your team. You didn't give up even when things went sideways. That's what we're looking for." That small bit of recognition meant everything to Sarah. It validated all the pain, all the exhaustion, all the sacrifice. She was doing something right. By month 4, only 18 candidates remained from the original 40. Sarah was the only woman left. Some people whispered that the instructors were going easy on her because she was female. Those whispers made Sarah train even harder. She refused to be anyone's diversity quota or token success story. She wanted to earn her place through pure merit. The instructors noticed her dedication. Chief Davis pulled her aside one day after a particularly brutal training session. "You're doing well, Mitchell," he said. "Better than well, actually. You've got the heart for this. Don't let anyone tell you different." "Thank you, Chief," Sarah replied, standing at attention despite her exhaustion. "I'm not finished," he continued. "Heart matters, but it's not everything. Selection is going to be harder than anything you've experienced here. Most of the candidates who get that far are bigger than you, stronger than you. You're going to have to be smarter and tougher to compete. Are you ready for that?" Sarah met his eyes. "I'm ready for whatever it takes." Around this time, Marcus tried to contact her again. He had been silent for months, but suddenly started sending messages. He said he missed her, that he had made a mistake, that he wanted to work things out. Sarah read the first message and deleted the rest without opening them. That chapter of her life was closed. She was building something new now, something that belonged only to her. The divorce was finalized in month 5. Sarah felt nothing but relief when she signed the papers. Her lawyer said Marcus had looked angry and bitter at the final hearing. Sarah didn't care. She was too focused on her training to waste energy on him. As month 6 approached, the remaining candidates underwent their final evaluations. These assessments would determine who moved forward to actual selection and who stopped here. Sarah pushed herself harder than ever. She improved her run times, increased her strength numbers, and aced every written exam. When the results were posted, Sarah's hands shook as she searched for her name. There it was, on the list of candidates approved for selection. She had done it. She had made it through preliminary training. Out of 40 people who started, only 11 were moving forward. And she was one of them. That night, Sarah called her father to share the news. His voice cracked with emotion as he congratulated her. "Your mother is watching over you," he said. "I know she is." Sarah allowed herself one night to celebrate, to feel proud of what she had accomplished. But the next morning, she was back to work. Preliminary training had been hard, but everyone said selection was on an entirely different level. It was where the real warriors were forged, where the weak were separated from the elite. Sarah was ready to find out which one she was. Selection started with a simple instruction. The candidates were told to pack their bags and be ready for immediate departure. They weren't told where they were going or for how long. This was the first test of many. Could they handle uncertainty? Could they adapt to the unknown? Sarah packed efficiently, including only essentials. Some candidates packed too much, not understanding that they would be carrying everything on their backs for days. Others packed too little and would later regret it. Sarah had learned from her preliminary training to strike a balance. They were transported to a remote location in the mountains. The landscape was beautiful but harsh, with steep terrain and unpredictable weather. The instructors gave them minimal information. They would be tested on navigation, endurance, problem-solving, and mental toughness. If they rang the bell at any point, they could quit and return to their normal lives. No one would think less of them. The bell was always available, always tempting, especially when things got hard. The first week was called Hell Week, though it was actually 10 days long. Candidates were allowed only 4 hours of sleep total across those 10 days. The rest of the time was filled with constant physical activity, training evolutions, and missions. They ran with heavy packs over mountain trails. They swam in cold water until their teeth chattered uncontrollably. They carried logs as a team through obstacle courses. They did this while instructors yelled at them, criticized them, and tried to break their spirits. Sarah's body had never hurt so much. Every step was agony. Her feet were covered in blisters. Her shoulders were rubbed raw from her pack straps. Her hands bled from rope climbs and obstacle courses. But she kept moving. When her mind screamed at her to quit, she pushed those thoughts away and focused on the next step, the next task, the next minute. 2 candidates rang the bell on the second day. 1 more quit on day 4. Sarah watched them leave and felt a strange mixture of sympathy and determination. She understood the desire to end the pain, but she refused to give in to it. The instructors seemed particularly interested in testing Sarah. They gave her heavier weights to carry. They questioned her decisions more harshly. They paired her with partners who weren't always helpful. Sarah knew what they were doing. They wanted to see if she would complain, if she would claim unfair treatment, if she would crack under the pressure. She gave them nothing. She completed every task, met every standard, and never made excuses. On day 7 of Hell Week, during a night navigation exercise, Sarah encountered her biggest challenge yet. She was alone in the dark, trying to reach a checkpoint using only a map and compass. The terrain was treacherous, and she was running on less than 2 hours of sleep over the past week. Every part of her body screamed for rest. She stumbled and fell hard, rolling down a small embankment. Pain shot through her ankle as she landed awkwardly. For a moment, Sarah just lay there, looking up at the stars, wondering if this was where her journey ended. It would be so easy to call for help, to admit injury, to ring the bell. No one would blame her. But then she thought about that burning uniform. She thought about Marcus's smug face. She thought about everyone who doubted her, who said women couldn't do this, who expected her to fail. Sarah gritted her teeth, tested her ankle, and found that while it hurt badly, it wasn't broken. She could still walk on it. She could still continue. Sarah pulled herself up and kept moving. Each step sent pain shooting up her leg, but she made it to the checkpoint on time. The instructor there noticed her limp but said nothing. He simply marked her completion and sent her to the next objective. By the end of Hell Week, only 8 candidates remained from the original 11. Sarah was exhausted, injured, and running on pure willpower, but she was still there. She had survived the first major filter. The training after Hell Week was different. It focused more on specialized skills. Candidates learned advanced combat techniques, tactical medicine, advanced weapons handling, and specialized infiltration methods. They studied enemy tactics and learned multiple languages. The physical training continued, but now it was combined with complex mental challenges. Sarah excelled at the academic portions. She had always been a good student, and now that discipline paid off. She memorized procedures, studied tactics, and absorbed information like a sponge. Some of the larger, stronger candidates who had cruised through the physical portions struggled here. Sarah found a new confidence in her ability to compete on this level. But the physical challenges didn't get easier. If anything, they intensified. Sarah's injured ankle hadn't fully healed, but she couldn't afford to show weakness. She wrapped it tightly every morning and pushed through the pain. She knew that if the instructors thought she was a liability, she would be removed from the program. During week 15, candidates faced a realistic combat scenario. They were divided into small teams and had to complete a mission, while role players acted as enemy forces. Sarah's team was tasked with infiltrating a compound, gathering intelligence and extracting without being detected. Sarah wasn't the team leader, but she contributed her ideas during planning. The mission went sideways quickly. They were detected earlier than expected, and enemy role players engaged them. Sarah's team had to adapt, change their approach, and still complete the objective under pressure. In the chaos, Sarah made a split-second decision that saved her teammate from being tagged as a casualty. She drew enemy fire while her teammate reached cover, then used her knowledge of the terrain to evade and reposition. After the exercise, the instructors reviewed their performance. They praised the team's adaptability and specifically mentioned Sarah's decision-making under fire. It was another small validation that she belonged here, that she could contribute at this level. As the months progressed, the remaining candidates formed a tight bond. They had all suffered together, pushed through impossible challenges together, and seen their weaker colleagues fall away. They respected each other in a way that only shared hardship can create. Sarah was no longer the female candidate. She was Mitchell, a warrior who had earned her place alongside them. But there were still tests ahead. Around month 7, candidates faced underwater exercises that pushed them to their limits. They had to complete complex tasks while holding their breath, simulate escape from sinking vessels, and handle equipment failures underwater. This was where Sarah's smaller size actually became an advantage. She could move more efficiently through tight spaces and used less oxygen than her larger teammates. During one particularly difficult exercise, a candidate panicked underwater and had to be pulled to safety. He was removed from the program. Sarah watched him leave and felt grateful that she had conquered her own fear of drowning years ago during preliminary training. The instructors constantly evaluated not just physical and mental abilities, but character. They watched how candidates treated each other, how they responded to stress, whether they took shortcuts or maintained integrity even when no one was watching. Sarah had learned from her father that character was everything. She stayed true to her values even when exhausted, even when it would have been easier to compromise. By month 9, only 5 candidates remained, Sarah and 4 men, all of whom had proven themselves time and again. They were approaching the final phases of selection, the ultimate tests that would determine if they were truly ready to join the elite ranks. Sarah's body was lean and hard now, shaped by months of intense training. Her face showed the marks of someone who had endured and overcome, but it was her eyes that had changed the most. There was a confidence there, a certainty that hadn't existed before. She knew who she was now. She knew what she was capable of. One evening, Sarah received an unexpected message. It was from Lieutenant Commander Rhodes, the officer who had first suggested she try for special operations. The message was brief but encouraging. Rhodes said she had been following Sarah's progress and was proud of how far she had come. She reminded Sarah that she was making history, showing other women what was possible. Sarah appreciated the message, but she didn't think of herself as making history. She was just doing what she loved, pursuing a goal that mattered to her. If other women were inspired by that, it was a bonus. But her primary motivation was personal. She was proving to herself that she could do this, that she was worthy of standing among the best. The final phase of selection was approaching. Sarah could feel it in the air, in the way the instructors watched them, in the intensity of the training. Everything had been building to this. Soon she would know if all her sacrifice, all her pain, all her determination had been enough. The final phase began with what instructors called the crucible. It was a 72-hour continuous exercise that tested everything the candidates had learned. They would receive no sleep, minimal food, and face constant physical and mental challenges. It was designed to push them beyond what they thought was humanly possible, to see who would break and who would endure. Sarah and the 4 remaining candidates were given their mission briefing. They would operate as a team, moving through over 100 miles of difficult terrain while completing objectives along the way. Enemy role players would actively hunt them. If caught, they would face resistance to interrogation exercises. There would be no rest, no comfort, only the mission. The exercise began at midnight. Sarah's team moved through the darkness, navigating by map and compass. They had to reach their first objective by dawn, a checkpoint 20 miles away across mountainous terrain. Sarah's ankle, which had never fully healed, throbbed with each step. She ignored it. Pain was just information now. It couldn't stop her unless she let it. They reached the first checkpoint with minutes to spare. An instructor waited there with their next objective and gave them just enough time to refill their water bottles. Then they were moving again, pushing south toward a simulated enemy compound they needed to observe and report on. Hours blended together. Day became night, became day again. Sarah's mind started playing tricks on her from the lack of sleep. She saw things that weren't there, heard voices in the wind, but she forced herself to stay focused on the immediate task. One foot in front of the other, one objective at a time. During the second night, enemy role players ambushed their team. Sarah and her teammates had to evade, moving quickly through dense forest in complete darkness. One of her teammates, a man named Rodriguez, fell and injured his knee. He couldn't move at full speed. The team had a choice. They could leave him behind to move faster, or slow down and stay together. There was no official right answer, but Sarah knew what kind of warrior she wanted to be. "We stay together," she said firmly. The others agreed. They modified their formation, supporting Rodriguez while maintaining security. It cost them time, but they all made it through together. On the final day, exhausted beyond measure, Sarah's team was captured by enemy role players. They were separated and subjected to resistance to interrogation training. Instructors tried to break them psychologically, using stress positions, disorientation, and intense questioning. They wanted to see who would give up information, who would crack under pressure, who would maintain their integrity when every part of them wanted to surrender. Sarah was placed in a small, dark space. She couldn't stand up fully or stretch out. Time lost all meaning. She was cold, hungry, and exhausted beyond anything she had experienced before. Instructors came periodically to question her, to offer her relief if she would just give them information. Sarah remembered her training. She gave only name, rank, and service number. Nothing else. The hours in that dark space were the longest of her life. Her mind wandered to strange places. She thought about her childhood, her mother's funeral, her father's pride. She thought about Marcus and felt nothing but indifference. That part of her life seemed so distant now, like it had happened to someone else. She thought about the woman she used to be, unsure and seeking validation. That woman was gone. Sarah had forged herself into something new. Finally, after what felt like days but was actually 18 hours, the exercise ended. Sarah and her teammates were released, given food and water, and allowed to rest. They had completed the crucible. All 5 of them had made it through without quitting, without breaking, without compromising their values. But selection wasn't over yet. There was one final evaluation, a review board where senior special operations personnel would interview each candidate and decide if they were truly ready. This board had the authority to reject candidates even at this late stage if they had concerns about readiness or suitability. Sarah had 3 days to recover before her board review. She used the time to rest, eat proper meals, and mentally prepare. She knew she had performed well physically. She had met every standard and exceeded many. But the board would also assess her judgment, her maturity, and her understanding of what she was committing to. The day of her review arrived. Sarah put on her service uniform and stood before a panel of 5 senior officers. They asked her detailed questions about her training, her decision-making during specific exercises, her motivations for wanting to join special operations. Sarah answered honestly and thoughtfully, showing both confidence and humility. One officer asked the question Sarah had been expecting. "You're aware that you would be one of very few women in this community. You'll face skepticism from some people, regardless of your performance. How will you handle that?" Sarah met his eyes steadily. "Sir, I face skepticism and doubt my entire life. What I've learned is that the best response is competence and professionalism. I can't control what others think of me. I can only control my own actions and my own standards. I intend to meet every challenge with the same dedication I've shown during selection." The officer nodded, seemingly satisfied with her answer. The board thanked her for her time and dismissed her. Now came the hardest part, waiting for their decision. 2 days later, all 5 candidates were called together. Chief Davis stood before them with an expression Sarah couldn't read. Her heart pounded as she waited for him to speak. "Over the past 10 months, you 5 have proven yourselves in ways that most people never will," Chief Davis began. "You've been tested physically, mentally, and morally. You've been pushed to your breaking points and beyond. Some of your peers quit. Some failed. You did not." He paused and Sarah held her breath. "It is my privilege to inform you that you have all successfully completed selection. Welcome to Naval Special Warfare. You are now Navy SEALs, The words took a moment to register. When they did, Sarah felt emotion surge through her. She had done it. She had actually done it. 10 months of hell, of pain, of doubt, of pushing beyond every limit, and she had made it through. She was a Navy SEAL. The graduation ceremony was small but meaningful. Family members were invited to watch as the new SEALs received their tridents, the symbol of their elite status. Sarah's father attended, tears streaming down his face as he watched his daughter receive her pin. She hugged him tightly afterward, both of them crying now. "Mom would be so proud," Sarah whispered. "She already is," her father replied. "And so am I. You're extraordinary, Sarah. Don't ever let anyone tell you different." That evening, the new SEALs celebrated together. They had formed bonds that would last a lifetime, forged in shared suffering and triumph. Rodriguez raised a toast to Sarah, thanking her for refusing to leave him behind during the crucible. The others joined in, acknowledging that Sarah had earned her place among them through merit and heart. Later, alone in her apartment, Sarah looked at her trident. The symbol meant everything she had fought for. It represented not just her physical abilities, but her character, her determination, her refusal to quit when things got hard. She thought about the woman who had stood on her lawn a year ago, watching her uniform burn. That woman had been broken. This woman was unbreakable. Sarah knew her journey wasn't over. Being a SEAL meant constant training, dangerous missions, and a demanding lifestyle. But she was ready for all of it. She had proven to herself that she could overcome any obstacle, endure any hardship, achieve any goal she set her mind to. She sent a message to Lieutenant Commander Rhodes, thanking her for believing in her potential and encouraging her to try. Rhodes replied quickly, saying she always knew Sarah had what it took. Sarah didn't send any message to Marcus. He didn't deserve to know about her success. He had tried to diminish her, to make her small, to take away her dreams. He had failed. Sarah had taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into the catalyst for her greatest achievement. As she prepared for bed that night, wearing her SEAL insignia with pride, Sarah reflected on the path that had led her here. Every obstacle had made her stronger. Every doubt she had overcome had built her confidence. Every challenge she had faced had revealed her true character. Tomorrow she would begin the next phase of her career, specialized training in the particular skill set she would bring to her SEAL team. But tonight, she allowed herself to simply enjoy this moment of triumph, to savor the knowledge that she had done something extraordinary. After graduation, Sarah entered advanced training for her specific role within the SEAL teams. She was assigned to Team 7 and would specialize in communications and intelligence gathering. The training was intense, but different from selection. Now they were learning specialized skills, tactical applications, and working together as cohesive units. Sarah thrived in this environment. Her natural intelligence and attention to detail made her excellent at intelligence work. She could analyze complex situations quickly and communicate critical information clearly under pressure. Her instructors noted that she had an instinct for identifying important patterns and details that others missed. 6 months after receiving her trident, Sarah deployed overseas for the first time. Her team was sent to a conflict zone where they would conduct reconnaissance and direct action missions. Sarah felt nervous but ready as she boarded the transport plane. She had trained for this moment for nearly 2 years. Now it was time to put that training into practice. The deployment was everything Sarah expected, and nothing she could have fully prepared for. The heat was oppressive, the conditions were harsh, and the danger was real. Her team operated in small groups, moving through hostile territory to gather intelligence on enemy positions and activities. Every movement could mean life or death. Every decision mattered. Sarah proved herself quickly. During their 3rd week in country, her team was conducting surveillance on a compound believed to house enemy commanders. Sarah was monitoring communications when she picked up chatter that indicated an ambush was being prepared for another American unit in the area. She immediately relayed the information through proper channels. The warning allowed the other unit to change their route and avoid the ambush. Sarah's quick thinking had likely saved lives. Her team leader, Lieutenant Mike Brennan, praised her work. "You've got good instincts, Mitchell," he said. "Keep it up." The deployment lasted 6 months. Sarah participated in numerous missions, some routine and some dangerous. She learned to manage fear, to trust her training, and to rely on her teammates. She also learned that being a SEAL wasn't just about being tough. It was about being smart, being professional, and being committed to the mission and your team. When Sarah returned home, she was a different person than when she left. She had proven herself in actual operations, not just training exercises. She had earned the respect of her teammates through performance, not words. She was now a tested combat veteran, but coming home brought unexpected challenges. Sarah had to readjust to normal life, to a world where people weren't constantly in danger, where the stakes weren't life and death. She found herself restless and disconnected from civilians who couldn't understand what she had experienced. One day, while grocery shopping, Sarah ran into someone from her past. It was Marcus's sister, Jennifer. They had been friendly before the divorce, but Sarah hadn't spoken to her since leaving Marcus. Jennifer's eyes widened with surprise when she saw Sarah. Sarah. "Oh my God, is that really you?" Jennifer approached cautiously. "Hi, Jennifer," Sarah replied, keeping her tone neutral. "You look so different. I don't know how to describe it. You look strong." Jennifer seemed genuine in her observation. "I heard you stayed in the Navy. Marcus said you were making a mistake, that you'd regret choosing your career over your marriage." Sarah felt a flash of anger but controlled it. "How is Marcus doing?" Jennifer's expression turned uncomfortable. "Not great, honestly. He remarried about 6 months ago. It's already falling apart. He's still the same person, controlling, dismissive of his wife's opinions. She's talking about leaving him too." Sarah felt a wave of sadness, not for Marcus, but for the woman who was going through what she had experienced. "I hope she finds the strength to do what's right for her." "Sarah, I want to apologize," Jennifer said suddenly. "When you left Marcus, I didn't understand. I thought maybe you were being too harsh, that marriages take work and compromise. But now I see what he's really like. I'm sorry I didn't support you back then." "It's okay," Sarah replied. "I didn't need support to know I was making the right choice. But thank you for saying that." Jennifer hesitated, then asked, "Can I ask what you've been doing? You seem so different, so confident." Sarah smiled slightly. "I've been serving my country in ways I'm not allowed to discuss in detail. Let's just say I found my purpose and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." They talked for a few more minutes before parting ways. As Sarah drove home, she thought about how far she had come from that night when her uniform burned. She wondered what Marcus would think if he knew she was now a Navy SEAL, one of the elite warriors he used to mock. Then she realized she didn't actually care what he thought. His opinion had no power over her anymore. Sarah's second deployment came 8 months later. This time her team was sent on a more complex mission. They would be working with Allied forces to dismantle an enemy network. The operation required careful planning, precise execution, and the ability to adapt to rapidly changing situations. During one mission, Sarah's team was clearing a series of buildings when they encountered unexpected resistance. A fierce firefight erupted and Sarah's communication equipment was damaged by shrapnel. She had to quickly switch to backup systems while under fire, maintaining contact with command and coordinating air support for her pinned-down team. Her calm under pressure and technical skill helped extract the team safely from a dangerous situation. Lieutenant Brennan submitted her for a commendation. "Mitchell performed exceptionally under fire," he wrote in his report. "Her technical expertise and composure were critical to the success of our mission and the safety of the team." Sarah was proud of the recognition, but knew it was just part of doing her job well. She wasn't seeking glory or awards. She wanted to be an effective operator, a reliable teammate, someone her brothers in arms could count on when things got hard. As she approached her 3-year mark as a SEAL, Sarah reflected on her journey. She had gone from having her uniform burned to earning one of the most respected insignias in the military. She had transformed pain into purpose, humiliation into strength, doubt into certainty. She had proven that women could not only survive, but excel in the most demanding special operations training in the world. Young women started reaching out to her through official channels, asking for advice about pursuing special operations careers. Sarah took time to respond to each one thoughtfully. She didn't sugarcoat the difficulty or promise that it would be easy. But she told them the truth. If you want it badly enough, if you're willing to work harder than you've ever worked for anything, if you refuse to quit when things get impossible, you can achieve extraordinary things. One message stuck with her. A young sailor wrote that her boyfriend was pressuring her to quit the Navy because he didn't like being in a relationship with a woman in the military. She asked Sarah how she dealt with similar pressure. Sarah's response was direct. Anyone who asks you to be less than you are, to give up your dreams for their comfort, doesn't deserve a place in your life. You have one life to live. Live it on your own terms. The right person will celebrate your strength, not feel threatened by it. She hoped that young woman would find the courage to choose herself, just as Sarah had done. Life was too short and too precious to spend it trying to make yourself smaller for someone else's ego. Sarah's team was preparing for another deployment when she received unexpected news. She was being promoted to Petty Officer First Class and would be taking on more leadership responsibilities. It was recognition of her performance, her professionalism, and the respect she had earned from her peers and superiors. The promotion ceremony was attended by her team and some senior officers. As Sarah received her new rank insignia, she thought about everyone who had doubted her along the way. She thought about Marcus, who believed she wasn't strong enough or important enough to pursue her dreams. She thought about the people who said women couldn't be SEALs. She thought about her own moments of doubt when the training seemed impossible. All of those doubts and obstacles had made her stronger. They had fueled her determination and shaped her into the warrior she had become. Sarah realized that she should actually be grateful for the challenges. Without them, she might never have discovered what she was truly capable of achieving. 5 years after becoming a SEAL, Sarah had achieved more than she ever imagined possible. She had completed multiple combat deployments, earned several commendations, and become one of the most respected operators in her unit. She had also been selected to attend advanced leadership courses, preparing her for even greater responsibilities in the future. But Sarah's greatest impact wasn't just in her operational success. She had become a symbol of what was possible when determination met opportunity. Other women who wanted to pursue special operations paths looked to her as proof that it could be done. Sarah took that responsibility seriously, always striving to maintain the highest standards and represent herself with professionalism. One afternoon, Sarah received a call from an unfamiliar number. She answered cautiously, as she always did. The voice on the other end was one she never expected to hear again. "Sarah? It's Marcus." Sarah felt a mixture of emotions, surprise, curiosity, and a touch of old anger that she thought had completely faded. "What do you want, Marcus?" "I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from," he said, his voice lacking the arrogance she remembered. "But I've been thinking about you a lot lately. I heard through some mutual acquaintances about your career, about what you've accomplished. I wanted to call and, I don't know, I guess I wanted to say I was wrong." Sarah remained silent, letting him continue. "When we were married, I tried to control you. I tried to make you into something you weren't because I was insecure. I burned your uniform because seeing you succeed in something I could never do made me feel small. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I realize now what I did to you, and I'm sorry." Sarah considered his words carefully. She could hear genuine remorse in his voice, but it didn't change what had happened. It didn't erase the hurt or the anger she had felt, but it also didn't matter as much as it once would have. "Marcus, I appreciate you calling," Sarah said finally, "but I need you to understand something. What you did to me, burning my uniform and trying to force me to quit, was one of the worst moments of my life. But it was also the best thing that could have happened to me." "What do you mean?" Marcus asked, confusion evident in his voice. "When you burned that uniform, you showed me exactly who you were. You forced me to make a choice about the kind of life I wanted to live. You pushed me to discover strength I didn't know I had. If you hadn't done that, I might have stayed in a mediocre marriage wondering what I could have become. Instead, I became extraordinary." There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Finally, Marcus spoke again, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm glad you found success, Sarah. You deserve it. You always deserved better than how I treated you." "Thank you for saying that," Sarah replied. "I hope you find happiness too, Marcus. But more importantly, I hope you learn to respect the women in your life for who they are, not who you want them to be." After ending the call, Sarah sat quietly, processing the conversation. She realized that she felt no anger toward Marcus anymore, no resentment or bitterness. He was just a person who had made mistakes, who had let his insecurities control his actions. Sarah had moved so far beyond that chapter of her life that he no longer had any power to hurt her. A few weeks later, Sarah was invited to speak at a Naval Academy event about her experiences in special operations. She was nervous about public speaking, but she agreed because she believed her story might inspire young sailors who were considering challenging career paths. Standing before a crowd of several hundred people, Sarah shared her journey. She talked about watching her uniform burn, about the divorce, about the brutal training and moments of doubt. She talked about the physical pain, the mental challenges, and the constant pressure to prove herself. But she also talked about the transformation, the discovery of her own strength, and the pride of serving at the highest levels. "The most important lesson I learned," Sarah told the audience, "is that you are capable of far more than you think. When someone tries to diminish you, when someone tells you that you're not good enough or strong enough, they're really telling you about their own limitations, not yours. Your only job is to prove it to yourself, not to them." The speech was met with a standing ovation. Afterward, dozens of young sailors approached Sarah with questions and thanking her for sharing her story. Several young women had tears in their eyes as they thanked her for showing them what was possible. One young woman, barely 20 years old, told Sarah that she had been considering quitting because her family didn't support her military career. Sarah's story gave her the courage to keep going. "Your family might not understand now," Sarah told her, "but when you achieve your goals, when you become the person you're meant to be, they'll be proud. And if they're not, you'll be proud of yourself. That's what matters most." Sarah's father attended the speech and waited patiently to talk to his daughter after the crowds dispersed. When they were finally alone, he hugged her tightly. "Your mother would have loved to see this," he said. "You've become everything she hoped you would be. Strong, brave, and true to yourself." "I learned it from both of you," Sarah replied. "You taught me that honor matters, that integrity matters, that being true to your values is more important than being liked or comfortable." That conversation with her father reminded Sarah of why she had chosen this path. It wasn't about proving Marcus wrong or showing people what she could do. It was about living a life of purpose, about serving something greater than herself, about pushing her own boundaries and discovering her potential. As Sarah's career progressed, she took on more mentorship roles. She helped train new candidates, sharing the lessons she had learned through her own struggles. She was honest with them about the difficulties they would face, but also encouraging about what they could achieve. Her approach was tough but fair, demanding excellence while also providing support when needed. One of her mentees, a young woman named Emily, struggled during training. She was strong and determined, but she lacked confidence. Sarah saw something of her younger self in Emily and took extra time to work with her. She shared her own moments of doubt and how she overcame them. She taught Emily that confidence comes from preparation and from proving to yourself that you can handle whatever comes your way. Emily eventually completed selection and became a SEAL. At her graduation, she sought out Sarah and thanked her. "I wouldn't have made it without your guidance," Emily said. "You showed me that it was possible." "You did the work," Sarah replied. "I just helped you believe you could." 10 years after her uniform had burned, Sarah was promoted to Chief Petty Officer. It was a significant milestone, recognizing her leadership and her contributions to naval special warfare. The promotion ceremony was attended by her team, her commanders, and her father, who was now in his 70s but still strong and proud. After the ceremony, Sarah took a moment alone to reflect on her journey. She thought about the scared, hurt woman who had watched her uniform burn, wondering if her life was over. She thought about the grueling selection process that had nearly broken her. She thought about deployments, firefights, close calls, and moments of triumph. She thought about the young women she had mentored and inspired. Sarah realized that the burning of her uniform, which had seemed like such a devastating moment, had actually been the spark that ignited her transformation. It had forced her to confront who she was and who she wanted to be. It had pushed her to discover strength she didn't know existed. It had led her to a life of purpose, excellence, and service. She pulled out her phone and looked at a photo she had saved. It was from her SEAL graduation, her father pinning the trident on her uniform. Sarah's face in that photo showed pride, exhaustion, and determination. She barely recognized that version of herself anymore. She had grown and evolved so much since then. Sarah thought about Marcus occasionally, but only with a sense of distant gratitude. He had tried to break her, to make her small, to take away her dreams. Instead, he had given her the motivation to become something extraordinary. In trying to destroy her, he had actually created the circumstances that allowed her to discover her true potential. As the sun set on the ceremony, Sarah walked to her car with her father. He was telling stories about her mother, about the strength and determination she had shown during her battle with cancer. Sarah listened, feeling a deep connection to the woman she had lost so many years ago. She carried her mother's strength with her every day, in every challenge she faced, in every obstacle she overcame. "Dad," Sarah said suddenly, "do you think Mom would be proud of who I've become?" Her father stopped walking and turned to face her. His eyes were wet with tears, but his voice was strong. "Sarah, your mother is more than proud. When she was sick, she told me that her only regret was that she wouldn't get to see the woman you would become. But I think somehow she knew. She knew you had this strength inside you. She knew you would do extraordinary things. And wherever she is now, she's watching you and smiling." Sarah hugged her father, both of them crying now. All the pain, all the struggle, all the sacrifice had led to this moment. She was exactly who she was meant to be, doing exactly what she was meant to do. Her uniform had burned, but she had risen from those ashes stronger, fiercer.